Conversations, yeah. You ain't ready for these conversations, yeah. Have some faith when we conversating. Whoa. Connecting when we conversating. Holy conversations, yeah. I'm having conversations. I'm having conversations. I'm having conversations of faith.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Conversations of Faith with friends and family. Before we get started, make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and set the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Every Saturday at 1 p.m., we're going to be coming to you with something else, something that my brain is cooked up, but it's always a joy to bring it to you. You guys know the cast. The lovely Evan Carino, please say hello.
Hi.
Christy.
Hi.
And Alex.
Hola.
We are the Fantastic Four, you guys. I wish I knew the characters of that.
Yeah, I don't know.
That comic or whatever that is, because then we could say who we are. But anyway, I will move on. Everybody doing well today?
Yeah. Doing great.
You look great.
Awesome.
Look great.
Get our special guest again.
Yes, Venice back for another episode.
She's getting massaged.
She's the official mascot now.
That's right.
Conversations of Faith with friends and family. All right, you guys, you know what time it is. We start every show with Bible trivia. Hit that music, bro. Bible trivia. Bible trivia. Bible trivia is a very serious game. You guys have probably seen Hunger Games. Bible trivia is kind of like that, where if you don't get any questions right, you don't eat for the rest of the day. So
I'm starving.
You're gonna have to send a care package or a boy here. But we got our host, Saidu. Saidu, you got your game card ready? You ready? Everybody's buzzer working. All right.
Okay.
Let the games begin and be ready. I'll be honest and fair and say who buzzed first, okay? I promise.
Oh, you will? Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead, Saidu.
You ready? The first question is going to be, how many believers did Paul lay?
400. Anybody else? Because I know that's just a shot in the
I
dark.
have no idea.
No?
12.
I was going to say 25.
I was going to say 27. I was on first guess.
400.
How many believers?
Okay.
Yeah, Paul.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, that's the
Okay.
reference.
Thank you.
Next question.
The next question. Okay. On Paul's third missionary journey, what happened to believers when Paul lay hands?
Did they receive the Holy Spirit?
Correct. The Holy Spirit.
This is easy enough, right?
Came. Okay, next. Where did Jesse, David, and his 7 brothers?
Where did Jesse, David, and his 7 brothers live?
This is so sad.
Yeah.
Where did they live? I don't know. I have no idea.
Anybody? Put in the comments if you know.
In the house.
Yes, give us a hint.
Someone else was born. Was it Bethlehem? Bethlehem.
Dang it.
Correct.
Oh.
I was gonna say Bethlehem to begin with.
I was too.
The fourth question. Okay, let me try to see. Okay, when Samuel went to the house of Jesse to anoint the next, what was David doing?
Tending the sheep.
Correct.
All
Man,
right.
I'm falling.
Hey, there it is. You go get a slice of
How many
bread.
was that?
You go get a slice of bread after this.
Even the
episode.
dogs.
Was that 4 or 5?
Was that 4 or 5?
That's 4. Now the
Okay.
last one.
Okay.
What did David tell Goliath? What did David tell Goliath he would do with the body of the slain?
He said he's gonna remove his head. Yes or no?
Say it again.
Say, I think you did it
okay.
too soon. Hold on.
What did David tell Goliath he would do with the body of this Philistine soldier?
Feed it to the.
You didn't buzz it.
Yeah, correct.
Feed it
Feed
to
your
the
carcass to the birds.
carcass or whatever. Yeah.
The base, the
Mhm.
correct.
You buzzed in too. Yeah.
Hey, there we go.
I mean,
I guess the Zell did go through.
Exactly.
Okay, finally.
All right, man. That's the end of the Bible trivia.
Okay.
Great job, everybody. Great job. How many questions did you guys get right watching this?
I
Probably.
feel like it's always easier at home. Maybe it's not.
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments.
That is true, and I think we might have talked about there was this guy that had this show, and it was called Billy on the Street, and he would run up to people and catch them completely off guard, and he'd go to the lady and he'd go, Miss, for $1, name a woman. And they would go, and be like, come on, any woman. And they're
Yeah.
like, I don't. He's like, come on, for $1. And just the pressure was
It's
just so
the
much. They
pressure.
could not name a single woman. It's so, it's interesting.
I don't know
You
women.
know what that made me think of, right?
What?
The time we went to that comedy show.
Oh my gosh.
It was awful.
What, for you?
So yeah, I'm a very shy person, and we went to a comedy show. It was a Christian comedy show. You think you're safe, everybody's nice, whatever. No, this was not the case. So they did improv, and so he would go around to people in the audience to get material for his improv, and he sees Alex. Alex is talking to him, no problem. And then he's like, oh, and this is my wife, Christy. Why he has to include
She's
me,
like, I hate
not
you.
really sure. But he felt the need to include me. And so then the guy asked me, he said, what was one thing that he said to you on your first date? I literally couldn't remember my name. I couldn't say
Yeah.
anything. He sat there for so long asking me over and over, and I could have said anything in the world.
Yeah.
Anything.
It was almost like if she turned her back towards Sodom again.
Turn to salt.
And I
And
could
just
not
froze.
mumble one
Turned to a
word.
pillar of
He
salt.
sits down on the stage. He's like, we'll wait. And he sits down.
Oh my god.
And so it is so embarrassing that they're going, Christy. And as I'm leaving, everybody's like, bye, Christy. And
So
I'm
I
like,
was like-
never going
I'm
back.
like hitting
ever.
her right here. I'm like, yo, say
Anything.
anything.
But I
say
couldn't.
something. The guy
Didn't
sat
say.
on stage. He's like, oh, we're gonna sit here. He's like, I'm coming back to you. He sat on stage, said, you're gonna say something.
And I couldn't.
And I was like, look, just say anything. Say
I couldn't
anything.
mumble a word. I could not. There
She
was nothing
froze.
I could say.
Oh my
It
gosh.
It was so embarrassing.
Oh.
What was I forget. I just talked about it the other day. John the Baptist's father. Remember when the angel said, and from this moment forward you won't speak.
Zechariah.
Zechariah?
Zechariah.
Yeah.
She's like,
I mean, I could have said anything, and no one cared what my answer was. They would have moved on
Yeah.
in 2 seconds, but instead I made the whole show about me, which
Yeah,
was
she
the
froze.
opposite of what I wanted it to do.
Oh my
Just froze.
gosh.
Completely froze.
crippling fear. That's terrible.
Yeah, it was
Oh.
terrible.
That's rough.
Well,
Not very
today-
Christianly.
Yeah. Today, we wanted to talk about an idea that Alex came up with. And he had said, can anything good come from Nazareth? And I really liked it. The idea being that humble beginnings can lead to an impactful purpose. And for those listening, we want you to not disqualify yourself because of your past. And I wanted to tell you guys a little story. I found someone who I thought would be a perfect example of something like this. Okay, so the year is 1951. The location is Detroit, and there was a baby born. He was a little black baby boy. And the color of his skin is important because, as you know, the 50s, 1954 to
Jesus.
1954 to 1968 was the civil rights era, right?
Mhm.
So this little baby was born, little black boy, and he was born to a young poor couple. And by the time that he was 7, his dad just walked out on his family. And his mother, she had like multiple jobs. I think she had 3 jobs at one time, and she only had a third grade education, right? And she's raising 2 boys. And so she was cleaning people's houses. That was the only job that she could get. And this young man, he went to school, but he didn't do well at school. And actually his classmates they called him Dummy. That was his
Oh.
nickname,
Mhm.
Dummy. And even some of the teachers, agreed. And he even said that he agreed. He's like, my classmates
Oh.
call me Dummy. Some of the teachers call me Dummy. And he's like, I call myself Dummy. He said, so it's pretty much unanimous that I was just, this dumb kid. And he just wasn't interested in learning, but along with his lack of interest in learning anything, he had at the time what doctors, and I looked it up today, what it would be called. And there's a diagnosis that's called intermittent explosive disorder. And it's IED is a mental health condition characterized by recurrent episodes of impulsive, aggressive behavior or angry outbursts that are out of proportion to the situation. So this young man saw himself as dumb. His classmates saw him as dumb. And on top of that, he just had this incredible anger problem, and it was disproportionate to whatever the situation was. And he gave a couple of examples that one time this kid threw a pebble, like threw a small rock at him, but he was so filled with rage that he picked up the biggest rock that he could throw and threw it at this kid's face, like directly into
Wow.
to this young man's face, and almost put his eye out. Actually, there was another instance where he was at his locker and he was taking books out or whatever, and a student walked by and just pushed his locker shut. And again, he was like the Hulk, right? The rage took over, and he took the lock off of his locker and put it on his finger, and he hit this boy across the forehead, and it just left like a 3-inch gash. Just completely irrational response to things that happen around him. He actually talked about trying to hit his mother with a hammer one time. And but there was one instance in particular that he says really kind of was the moment that he realized that he had a major problem. Is he was listening to a radio, and I don't know exactly where he was, but this boy came up and changed the station, and he just so happened that day he had a knife, and it wasn't a small knife. It was he referred to it as a large camping knife. He tried to stab that boy in the stomach for changing the radio while he was listening to it. But luckily, the boy had on this belt buckle. It was like an ROTC belt buckle. And when he hit the boy in the abdomen, the knife hit the buckle and it broke the knife. And the boy just took off running. The boy tried to stab, took off running. He's like, this kid is crazy. But this young man said that he's like, I think I freaked out more than that boy did, because it was at that moment that he realized I could have just killed this kid. Like I could have, he could have been seriously injured. I'd be put into a home, gone to jail, all these things. So he ran home and he locked himself in in his bathroom, and he just cried out to God. He said, God, please take this temper from me. Like, this is crazy. This is not good. And he said there was a Bible in the bathroom, and he started reading Proverbs, and he started seeing a lot of in Proverbs where it was talking about how you have to control anger, and if you don't, what it will do to you. And he said for 3 hours he sat in the bathroom reading the Bible, reading through Proverbs, and praying to God to just help him to take that this anger from him, the temper from him. But he said after he left the bathroom that he didn't have any of those outbursts anymore. He never dealt with that again, that the Lord had taken it, and he was, different now. Well, he later, his mother, when she was cleaning the houses in these wealthy people's homes, she would see that these people were not just watching TV constantly. They were reading, they were studying. And so she would come home, and although she couldn't read, she would have them read 2 books every week. She said, you're going to read 2 books every week, and I want you to turn in a book report to me. And so before long, he really enjoyed reading, and he started craving reading and knowledge and information. And in a year and a half, he went from the last in his class to the top of his class. And he just was so in love with learning that he actually got a scholarship to Yale. He graduated, he got a full scholarship to Yale. And when he graduated from Yale, he went to the University of Michigan Medical School. And after he graduated from the University of Michigan Medical School, he got hired at Johns Hopkins Hospital. And at the age of 33, Dr. Ben Carson became the youngest director of pediatric neurosurgery ever. So this young man who grew up in the civil rights era of, of the U.S. history, where he was considered dumb and, they didn't want to.
Less than.
Yeah, like
Mhm.
even the police were just, what's the word? They were going after black people for being, just in the wrong place. It was the whole keep white neighborhoods white era. This kid turned his life around. And he's a believer. His
Yes.
mother is a believer. But I just thought that it was really interesting, his story, because in 1986 he became the first surgeon to perform brain surgery on a baby while it was still in the womb.
Oh, wow.
This man performed a surgery on a baby while it was still in the womb. And let's see what else. He was the first person to successfully separate conjoined twins that were joined at the head. Right, these two babies were born, and no other surgeon would touch this. No other surgeon was like, no. They told the mother, you need to pick which one of these kids you want to live, and we'll save that one, and the other one
Could
could
you
die.
imagine?
Yeah,
It's
and
terrible.
he and his team. This is the last second to last. He and his team performed 26 hemispherectomies, and that's where he actually went in and removed half of the brain of children. And here's why: these kids were suffering from seizures. And at the time, his idea was, we have technology now. In the past, you couldn't do some of these things. People were trying them and they were dying. The science was there, but the technology wasn't. So he was stepping out, and his big one of his major, I guess, tenets of life was wisdom, asking God for wisdom, because he said, you can have knowledge. You can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you don't have wisdom, then you won't know what to do with that knowledge. And so he's always spoken about asking God for wisdom, and he would do these things. And in children, you can actually remove half of their brain because it hasn't developed
Wow.
yet. And I think 90% of the children that he removed half of their brain, when it was successful, and then over half of that never had any more seizures.
Wow.
And so Ben Carson, he went on to run for president in 2016. He didn't get elected, but he did serve as the 17th United States Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. And I just, when you had said, can anything good come of Nazareth, I think this was a really good person to look at and see where he started from. Another one I want to talk about. Well, I don't go into detail about this one, but JD Vance. Like that
Mhm.
guy. I think it, but
Mhm.
when you have one who's removing half of people's brains,
Yeah.
and one who no shade to JD Vance, but both of
Mhm.
them, share a picture of they called the Ben Carson the surgeon with gifted hands, and he and JD Vance both have movies made about them. Cuba Gooding Jr. Actually did a movie where he portrays
remember that.
Ben Carson. So yeah, to get into today's episode, I think that's kind of the idea, is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you come from, what your past is. You can, if you turn to the Lord, you don't try and do anything under your own strength, I think is maybe the direction we want this conversation to go, is trust God, seek the Lord, and he can restore from. And this kid, everybody thought he was dumb, and he, by his own admission, he was dumb.
Yeah.
Is that what you had in mind?
Yeah, it says, "For as a man thinks, so is he."
Mm.
So
Mhm.
it's removing those things, those beliefs that allow you to think that you came. Yeah, you're like Nazareth. Like, for instance, I guess Nazareth must have been a town that a smart person can come from there. The idea that no, you came through Nazareth. Jesus knew where he came from. He always said, "I came down from above."
Right.
Mhm.
But yeah, it happened through Nazareth. Well, he didn't come from Mary. Also, he came through Mary.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he came through Nazareth. He came, and the same thing for us. We came through our mother's womb,
Mhm.
but we come from God.
Amen.
You know, I was born in Panama. I didn't come from Panama. I came through Panama into the world. Same thing for everybody that was born in a different country. You came through that place. You came through that womb, but you're not from there. That's not your origin. Our origin is from God. And if we
That's
remove those beliefs, what it does is it allows us to now see our true reality and live our divine purpose, which is in that verse in John 1:46. It says, "Can anything good come out from Nazareth?" And that word "good." So in Romans 7:7, Paul talks about. Remember the whole confusion he had about the things that I do now in the flesh and this and that. And Paul said that he said, let me not confuse everybody here. Let me go to Romans. Yeah, because I'm confused myself, right?
Yeah, I'll hit you with
Yeah, hit me with that.
That button.
And in verse, I think it's verse 17, said, "Now then, it is not more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me. For I know that in me, that is in my flesh, dwelleth no good thing." And Paul was going back and forth. Am I doing good, or is it me? Well, that word "good." So in the Bible, in the New Testament, the word "good" is defined, has two definitions, and one definition is agathos. That's the word in the Hebrew word agathos, and the other one is kalos. And agathos means divine good, and kalos means just human fleshly good. So the word "good" that's used in John 1:46 is the word kalos. Can any divine good come forth from Nazareth? Well, every divine good can come from anywhere because of its origin, because it comes from God.
Right.
So as long as something is connected to God, it's divinely good. And I think as in Ephesians 2, it says, let me make sure. Yeah, it says, "For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus unto good works." That word "good" on there is agathos, divine works.
Mhm.
So, yes, we are created for divine works. We are created for those good works, but it can only be done through the understanding of where I originally came from. I didn't come from Panama. I didn't come from my mother's womb. I came through there. That was a passageway to lead me to here to fulfill my purpose. But so I think deleting those stuff and removing those beliefs from our lives allows us to live a godly life in which we don't struggle. Because the whole idea of living a godly life is not for you to bounce back and forth. It's for you to walk with God in every instance of life,
Mhm.
and for Him to be present in your life always.
Right.
God was always present with Jesus. That was His confidence. You know, are we confident enough to say that He's always there? You know, notice Jesus never asked God, "Lord, are you there? Are you there?" He knew that He was always there. So we got to reach to that point in our lives, and that we know that He is always. Hebrews 13:5 says, "I will never leave you nor forsake us."
Mm-hmm.
We shouldn't have to quote the scripture. That scripture should be a reality in our heart. And I think the more we understand our origin and the more we connect to that as our beginning, it allows us to live the life in which we know that He'll never leave me nor forsake. No matter what, although I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil because you're with me. Although I'm going that way, I know you're with me. You know, Jesus in the wilderness, he knew God was with him, that He had never left him. So we got to have that confidence. But I think that confidence can only be built with an understanding of your true origin, not connected to a country, not connected to a specific mother or a woman, but connected to our Creator, God.
Yeah. I was just thinking about how the idea of good now is is it subjective?
Mhm.
Is that the right word? Everybody has their own idea of what is good. And you hear somebody refer to themselves as good, and it's like, based on what? You have to have a baseline.
Yeah.
to judge that on, because what's good to you may not be good to somebody else. It always has to come back to the Christ, the Savior, is that he's what's good.
Yes.
And the other thing too is people tend to like to identify with things that hold value to the world, right? Where they're from.
Yeah.
Meaning, I remember one time when it was like maybe a year before you and I met, there was this girl that was at the house I lived in, and I remember she was talking about where she was from. She was from some part of Chicago, but the way she said it was interesting, because she said it with such pride, but the area that she was talking about being from was, I guess, known for being very rough and very violent and things like that. But she was saying it like, I'm from such and such and such and such, and I didn't know what that. I was like, that means nothing to me, but people identify with that, where they're from, and they think that that's what impresses people, or it gives them notoriety.
Or what they do.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
are big about what they do. I mean, if you're, a lawyer or a judge or, a doctor, people identify with that and to think that they're better than, but also people who maybe they're, they clean, or, they're a cook or whatever, they think that that's lesser than, but that's not who you are. That's what you do. And I think Alex taught me that a lot. Like, he always wonders why, like, that's one of the first things people ask you. It's like, that's your identity, is what you do. And it really doesn't matter what you do, because it's really about who you are and what you believe and your heart that matters. But we identify so much with who our family is, where we're from, and what we do.
Yeah, I think it tends to give people the ability to justify their actions, justify their thoughts, what they say. It's like, well, it's because of this, right? Because that's again,
it's just a crutch.
Yeah, and just imagine, just think, if you don't have the understanding of who you are, or whatever, when you hear someone said, "Can anything good come from Nazareth?" Well, yeah, I have this thing in me that God says I'm going to do mighty things, but oh man, I was born in Nazareth, so therefore that's not going to happen, because I came from there, and nothing good can come from there. So even that, just little things like, and now you can use it as vice versa. If you come from a good home, or a good area, now you think that you are mighty because you came from that area. Now you're trusting in you. You're trusting in the fact that you came from a good so-called area, and you still trusting in yourself. Kind of like the story of Saul. Saul was born under. I'm sure he was born under great teaching, the word and all that, which led him to think that, man, I've got it, and he did, according to them, according to their perspective on what good was. He had it,
right?
But it was all for wrong.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like schools. So you have a doctor that graduated from Yale with a D, and a doctor who graduated from, I don't know, UGA with an A. Like, which is a better doctor? You know what I mean? So, but people would be like, "Oh, you're so prestige because you went to Yale or Harvard or whatever." But that's just school. It's the education that you got.
Test, man. You copied up his test.
The education you received is what's important, not the location of the school you went to.
Yeah,
but people identify with all that stuff.
I was thinking about if people could just get to a place, like you said, that's not where I came from, it's where I came through. We could do better about when people say, "Oh, well, if you don't have this, this is so hard to do because of this." And I'm not saying that I've got it mastered, but I hear things and I'm like, "Well, that doesn't apply to me." What makes you so different? Well, because my faith, right? I'm working. No, I shouldn't say working, but you understand what I'm saying. I want to operate from faith. It doesn't matter if I am a part of this or have the connection to this. If this is my purpose and I believe in it, then God will take care of. He'll open the doors that no man can open, and he'll close the doors that no man can wait. Open doors that no man can close, close doors that no man can open, right? But I think that once you start realizing that it's less about the carnal things, the city versus the kingdom, you know, the name of God rather than the name that you were given on your birth certificate. You have to shift that so that
Yes.
you understand
Mhm.
that is your heritage, and it's not just what everybody else sees. The whole world is running around in this. Well, I won't say the whole world. There's deception over man that these things are important, that they're valuable. And the reason is because there is such things as nepotism, where people are given opportunities just because of their name,
Yeah.
who they know. And it's just people are willing to settle for that. And it's like, well, I guess I'll never get my in because of this. But I choose to believe that God can do anything, and if I can just get my faith right and stand only in faith and not be moved by what I see or hear or people say is the reality, then I'll be rewarded and get to do the things that I love.
Or you look at it from the same way that they're looking at it is they're claiming their city or their family or whatever. You claim that you're a child of God.
Yep.
So because of that, then you know these things are going to be yours. Just the same way that they have that, they're using it in a negative worldly way. If we connect with the fact that our Father can give us anything, it's limitless. They have limits on what they can receive, but ours is limitless. If we can identify with that, then we use our own nepotism because our Father's going to be your Father every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody hates nepotism until it favors them. Right? That's true.
Yeah, you know, belief is, man, it's such a powerful weapon. You can use it for good or for bad,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
it's work. Because I mean, if you just think about it, you can't live beyond your beliefs.
Yeah.
You can't.
Right.
That's
You know,
good.
I don't care how much potential you have. You can't live beyond your beliefs. So your beliefs is what makes you go forward or keeps you there. It's your belief. It's interesting that the Lord uses three animals in the Bible, right? And I think it might be just three, but this is a sheep,
Mhm.
a lion, and an eagle.
Mm.
Well, the sheep has to submit to a shepherd,
Mhm.
right? Because it can't do nothing on its own. Is known to be the dumbest animal, whatever.
Mhm.
But look at the other two. The lion's referred to as the king of the jungle, but it's not the largest, it's not the biggest, it's not anything. The lion has a certain belief. So the lion, when he looks at you, he's not looking at you. He's looking at an elephant. He's looking at lunch.
Mhm.
That's his only belief. That when I'm looking at you, I don't care. I'm looking at lunch. The elephant is 3 times bigger or 4 times bigger than the lion. He can stomp on, just one stomp on him can kill him.
Yeah.
But the elephant has a different belief.
Mm.
The elephant looks at the lion, looks at danger.
Yeah.
You know, danger
Yeah,
and
that's true.
fear.
Mm.
And look at the eagle. The eagle rises above any birds. So I believe that's there in the Bible to let us know how if you believe in in your natural origin that can come from God in Genesis 1:26, man, this is how we should fly in the world and operate in the world. But not against people, but against the enemy.
Yes.
Amen.
Yeah.
You know, because that's our war against the enemy. We're not
Yeah.
fighting flesh and blood.
Mm.
You know, but a lot of times we think we're fighting people. No, we're fighting the enemy. The enemy is deceiving them into thinking that they're less and that come against that person. So if we take and use those examples in the Bible of those animals, man, it's belief. It's belief that makes him the king of the jungle. He's not the most powerful. He's not the fastest, but his belief is that he is.
Oh.
If we believe that we are sons of God and that we have inherited and we live in the kingdom and all his promises are yes and amen, man, our attitude will change.
Mm.
And we're not begging God for anything. I'm asking because it's mine. And when something is yours, it's mine. That's why when you come to God, it says I think in Matthew 6, it's when you go, your Father sees in secret, He will reward you openly. It means when you ask in secret, you have to believe that you receive it. It'll just come out because you've already believed that that's a reality. You're not waiting to be a reality in your life. Imagine if the lion has to sit there and wait to convince himself that he can eat the elephant.
Yeah.
He'll never do it. He already believes that he can, therefore he takes him down.
Mhm.
Dang. That's good. What else? Evan, say something. Can anything
I'm sleepy today, y'all. Sorry. I'm just listening to everybody.
Can anything
That's
good
good.
come from Nazareth?
Well, I mean, you think about Ben Carson, if his mother didn't start to instill in him, if he didn't pick up that Bible, there were different things that happened along the way. I'm sure there were teachers that helped him, and he probably had favor in different areas that he was in. So, but it all starts with, I am a firm believer that you become what you behold. And so, as you continue to, because there are people that will they look at, well, I was poor, or I came from a poor family. I'm poor. I don't have this. Like, it's never going to change. And they're constantly focused on their situation, and they don't change. It just continues that cycle. And it's only those that we see that actually look to something more and believe for something more and don't let go of that and continue in that. And then they come out of that. It doesn't just happen by accident. You're not just going to wake up one day and be a doctor.
Right.
You're going to have to go after it, and you're going to have to, behold that, continue to keep that as your focus. And, so I think that's something to look at as well. Just like Jesus, he had a focus, he had a goal in mind, he had a purpose, he knew what he was designed for. And it says for the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross, and he endured everything because he knew what he was there for. And so I think that's really important for us to know why we're doing this. What are we here for? I wasn't born to be a doctor. I know that in my heart. But there are people that, that God has used mightily to do that. So,
yeah, you gotta take your eyes off yourself, because we'll always find something.
There are positions in the world. Obviously, we all live in this world, so we're going to be put in positions, right? I mean, we all have jobs here, so I mean, we're all put in different positions that are in the world, but yet God has a purpose for every person in those positions. You can change the world for Jesus, because there have been a lot of people that have been put in positions that have changed the world for the enemy,
That's good.
Wow.
and put laws in place, and, all kinds of stuff that hasn't been, that shouldn't have been there, whereas God's people should have been the ones taking those jobs and those positions.
I remember talking to my grandmother and about the gospel and stuff when I first started coming around and like learning the word and stuff. And she knew nothing about it. She loved she loved God, but she didn't know anything. So she knew just what she had been told and stuff. And one of the things that a lot of older folks thinks that wisdom is gained through age.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
I always thought that. Yeah.
The
Sounds like a
older
subtle
you are,
lie.
the more wisdom you have. And I was like, that's not
Mhm.
necessarily truth.
Mm-hmm.
Said no, that you could be 1,000 years old, and you could be the most clueless person in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not, age doesn't give you wisdom. And it's, I'm not even gonna say that. So
You got the people wanting.
no, I'm not.
Say
I'm not gonna say that. But anyways, wisdom is
Alex
not.
stops himself, but Eli, he
Just
just keeps
keeps on
going. I
going.
have to stop Eli.
So wisdom
Anyway.
is not. It's not something that's gained through age. It's something that's given to you by God.
Mm-hmm.
God gives you wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
and Jesus, like Evan was talking about, knew his purpose. He was convinced of his purpose. So in a sense, when you look at somebody that's old, we think that person is, oh man, he's blessed because he lived to be 100. But in reality, if that's the case, then Jesus was cursed
Right.
because he lived to 33. So purpose is actually greater than a long life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now I want everybody to live long,
Right.
but greater than you living to be 120 years old is, did you fulfill your purpose?
Amen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's even greater than anything. Paul said at the end of his life, he said, I have finished my course. I have run the race.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't talking about because he lived to 120. Man, I finished what I was placed here to do. So there's purpose is the greatest thing you can do. Fulfilling your purpose, because there's joy. Like Evan said, for the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross. For the joy. Not for the amount of time that he was going to live in this world, for that joy. And I believe that God created us with that, to the point where we're not concerned about living 120 years old. Although, like I said, that you should want to live 120 years. But before that, you should want to fulfill your purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, for Jesus, it was 33 years old. For somebody, it might be whatever. But fulfilling your purpose is the greatest thing you can do in this world.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
No, you have to keep your mind on the kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
Because that means you're connected in the kingdom. You're in the kingdom. You're seeking his righteousness, not your
Not
righteousness.
yours.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, why don't we move into subtle lies? You want to talk about some subtle lies? If this is your first time joining us on Conversations of Faith, we are in the business of breaking down the subtle lies of the enemy. So what we do is we take a moment at the end of every show to discuss a subtle lie that you might be hearing, and we've got the subtle lie trash can here. This is an official officially licensed trash can right
Yep.
here through Conversations of Faith. If you want your own subtle lies trash can, leave a comment down below, and Christy will make one and send it to you. Let me reach into the pit of hell right here and pull out a subtle lie. Today's subtle lie says, be true to yourself. Be true to yourself. Why is that a subtle lie? Be true to yourself. Who wants to answer that?
Because nothing you do should be for yourself.
Hmm.
Right? Your confidence should come from God. And being true to yourself is, to me, like you think that you have it right, and that going based on your mind and your will, you're going to achieve something, which is the opposite of what God tells us to do.
Just like telling somebody to just follow your flesh, or
Mhm.
just whatever it is that you think is your truth. Because we can get it mixed up, right? We can think that we've arrived to following that. Be true to yourself.
That's scary.
Put yourself at
If you think about it, because there's people that have really demented and warped ways of thinking, and they're like, hearing that, I'm just going to be true to these feelings, and I'm just going to be true to myself, and I'm just going to, I mean,
She's like, whoa.
that's too much. Like, if you think about that, ew.
Well, he tells us constantly to deny ourselves, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So you can't deny yourself and then say that you're being true to yourself. You can be true to the word and the person that you're supposed to identify with being, and true to that, but true to yourself is just trusting in your own flesh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you
It's
think?
yourself. It puts you at the
Yeah.
center.
I think, being true to yourself just puts you at the in the wrong place in the garden, in front of that tree,
Oh,
wow.
knowledge of good and evil. And the funny thing is, like, you can, like Adam and Eve, they took fig leaves and covered themselves. They thought that they found goodness in fear.
Explain for me.
So notice why did they cover themselves? Because they were afraid that they were naked. So they saw goodness in fear.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you can find something good in fear, like
Mhm.
being shy, right? We talked about that. There's fear, and you find being good is me remaining over here.
Mm-hmm.
Notice you've searched in your mind. That makes sense. It makes perfect sense that I should hide myself,
Mhm.
not say anything, because of fear. So sometimes going to that tree. When you go to that tree, you're going away from God. First of all, you're trusting on yourself, and yourself is telling you that this is the right thing to do in this situation. And it's vice versa. It may tell you this is the wrong way to go, but in reality, it's completely. They're both off because they're based off you. There's a way that seems right to man, but it leads to destruction. It might seem the right way. To me, it might seem the wrong way, but they actually lead to the same place.
Right.
Because they're coming from me, they're coming from you, my natural understanding. They're not coming from God Himself.
Well, yeah.
So trusting in yourself, trusting in being true to you, you're gonna you remain in that tree. You remain underneath that tree, and you know the minute you touch that tree, you completely separate from God. And now you're on your own. And you're not functioning the way you were supposed to function. You're functioning according to what you think, but you're actually malfunctioning. You're not functioning right. You're in a vehicle, but you got your feet on the ground like the Flintstones. Instead of you're the one doing the performance instead of turning the ignition on.
Yeah.
So you're doing it, and you're thinking that this is the way. This is the right way to do it. This is the right way. No, that's not the right way. The right way is for you to connect back to yourself, connect yourself back to God, and now you'll see how effortlessly it is. It's supposed to be.
Mhm.
It's not supposed. There's not supposed to be any struggle for mankind.
That's good. I like it.
If you just look at after man ate, God said, "Because you have done this, now this is what's gonna happen. You're gonna have to do this. You're gonna have to do this." But that's a curse.
Right.
That wasn't something that God created for us to do. That was a curse because of this. So we gotta get away from those things, and the only way we get away from those things is we go back and we connect to our true nature, our true reality, who we really are, and that belief will actually overcome that all the stuff. I think it's in Deuteronomy. It says, "I have set before you death and life, blessing and cursing. Choose life." Well, how do you choose life? By believing.
Mhm.
You choose death by believing also.
Right.
If you identify with that, with what you think is right or wrong, you're choosing death, and you're choosing these things, and then you're wondering, man, these things are happening in my life, and God is there the whole time. Look, I'm right here.
Mhm.
Just turn from that.
Mhm.
No, turn from that. Delete all those things. Man, that's why it's amazing when I read that verse when Paul talks about all those things I've gained, I count it lost.
Mm-hmm.
All those things, I'm like, man, everything you've gained, you kind of lost. Like there was nothing good in what you had. Nothing for the excellency of the knowledge of Christ. You would think about it like, man, everything you had. Because remember, Paul loved God, Saul.
Yeah.
He loved God. So you would think that there would be something there that he could have kept. So nah, everything, because everything came based off my understanding of good and evil.
That is so good.
Everything. And that's what we must understand. If Saul had to do it, because he knew Jesus, that's the way it worked. We also must do it.
Mhm.
We can't keep one or two things like the King Saul did. Like when he was told to, destroy all the Amalekites and everything, he said, "We're gonna bring this good things as an offering to God."
Yeah.
Well, the kingdom is taken away from you. In a sense, the king you're taken away from the kingdom because now you're trusting in these things, and these things are good for the Lord. Me doing this is good for the Lord. You have all the right desire in your heart, but it's coming based off you
yourself.
James 4 talks about it's coming from your own lust, your own desire.
Mm-hmm.
You thinking that this is right.
Oh, that's good.
It's
Mhm.
very good.
Great
Yeah.
way to put that. That to debunk this subtle lie. I'll take care of it
Keep
from
it,
here.
And put it back in the pit of hell.
Get out of here. Hey, have you guys seen that new series out that's called House of David?
I started watching a little bit of it.
How far did you get into it?
I think I don't think he's he's still like with the sheep and stuff. I think he killed the lion.
Yeah.
He just killed the lion, something like that.
Did you
Not
see the
very
part
far.
about Samuel? Like,
Which
did you
I
part?
haven't watched it.
won't get into too many spoilers, but I was interested. We'll talk about it maybe the next show. The creative liberties that the writers had to take, they chose to take, but
Shows.
I don't know, a lot of people were upset because like that's not how it was, but it's
Yeah,
you
they're
know,
not.
you can't you
You
have
have-
to take some creative
Yeah.
liberties to keep a certain part of the audience.
Mhm.
We know Christians are going to tune in because it's a biblical story, but somebody who's watching it who doesn't know, they may not.
You have to add
they want a little
theatrics
bit
to it.
something extra.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Mhm.
But even a true when you see this movie based on a true story, they don't
Right.
right.
put
It's not
everything that's true.
That's
on
right.
it.
Yeah.
They'll add to it.
Right.
There's
Make
no
it,
Hope
you know.
Diamond in the Titanic.
Let's
Huh?
There's
That's-
no Hope
that's what we'll
Diamond on the
do.
Oh,
Titanic.
no.
we'll watch an episode. We'll watch episode
Yeah.
1.
God is not the director of that movie.
Right.
Well, folks, it's been a pleasure being with you for another episode. Don't forget to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and set the notification bell. Every Saturday at 1 o'clock, we will be here with you talking about things that we feel will be a blessing to you. On behalf of the cast and crew here at Conversations of Faith with Friends and Family, we say thank you for tuning in and being a part of this. You guys, Evan, would you like to say bye?
Bye.
Christy, would you like to say bye?
Bye.
Alex,
Adios. Hasta luego.
Venice, wake up. Venice is sleeping on the job constantly. Thank you
No
guys. We
dog
love
I
biscuits.
you.
feel you, girl.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.
I'm having conversations. I'm having conversations. I'm having conversations of faith.